Hi and welcome to my channel Budget Audio Review. Now today's a little bit of an unusual video. This is a Pioneer KX636. It's exactly the same as a Pioneer SX636 except it's got shortwave, a little extra board inside for the shortwave reception. Other than that it's identical. Now I've done a few sound tests on this recently and I thought what I'll do is I'll stick up a review, I'll have a proper sound demo myself, sit down, listen to it properly for a day or two and come to my conclusions of what I think it actually sounds like. Another video for the channel, and some people may be interested. So I had this on for a little while and I was changing CDs and etc and whatever. It was only for a short while really. All of a sudden one channel stopped working. I thought, what's happened here? You know, one channel's only working. Oh, here we go, what's happened now, kind of thing. So the main thing to check, obviously, like if one channel stopped working, is maybe the speaker connections are still tight, the leads are still in the speakers. Their end and the amplifier end, that was fine. The phono obviously hasn't moved the cable, the phono cable from the CD player hasn't moved. I mean, it's no need to move really. So yeah, being an old amplifier, obviously you know you want to come along, maybe check the balance. That did nothing. Check the volume, just give that a little backwards and forwards just in case, a little bit of dirt, etc. That did nothing. Then go over to the input where I had it on auxiliary, backwards and forwards, turn that, moved it around a little bit from auxiliary to phono and FM. Went to FM, that was still only one channel. So then the next thing I do is the tape monitor buttons, which are here. Just give them a press because sometimes they get dirty and it all goes through them to get the signal out to the speakers. Obviously check the speakers as well, the speaker switch, and after all that, nothing at all. Still exactly the same. We even turned it on and off a couple of times as well, so it's exactly the same. So now I've got a problem. I've got one channel gone down, so now I'm going to have to start fault finding. So the very next thing I thought I'd do is I'll spin it round because these have got protection fuses at the back, and I thought maybe one of them fuses has blown. Before I actually take it apart, let's just check the fuse. Then if that's still working, then I can open the top up and start delving around and try and find out what the fault is. So as we spin it round now, you'll see exactly what happened when I undone that little fuse box. Okay, so here it is, I've spun it round, and this is the little fuse box I'm talking about. Now this is just a little box here, and it's got two fuses inside, one for the left, one for the right. I'll take a close-up picture of that so you can see as it is now. Now your amplifier may have that slightly different. You may have the fuses actually inside the amplifier on the circuit board, or you may have some round fuse holders, two round fuse holders on the back. And you may even have three round fuse holders near each other. One would be for the mains, the actual power, and the other two will be for the speakers. But like I say, it can also be inside. My one's at the back, so no need for me to take the lid off. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to undo this little thing. It's quite easy, just one little screw, and that fuse box cover will come off, exposing the fuses. Now obviously I've already done this to find out what the problem was. So there's my two fuses there, and what I thought I'd do is I'll take both them fuses out with my multimeter and just test that, you know, one of them hasn't gone open circuit, one of them hasn't blown. But before I could do that, when I actually undid this little plastic cover here, it's got a screw in there to hold it on. Obviously just move my sleeves up so hopefully it's not going to get in the way. A little piece of metal here, I'll take a picture of it, but just a little piece of metal fell out with it as well. You're probably not going to get it on camera, but just a little bit of metal. And I thought, well, hello, what's happened here? Well, actually it wasn't one piece of metal, it was two pieces of metal. I'll tell you right, it was two pieces of metal. I've lost the other one. They're so small I managed to lose the other one. So two pieces of metal were stuck in the bottom of this as I pulled it out. They kind of come out with it. So these two pieces of metal, which I've only got one, it's around here somewhere on the floor, I just can't find it. Hold these fuses in, you know, there's a piece each side. I'll do a close-up picture there, you get an idea how the fuse is being held in. There's two that holds the fuse in, so obviously if there's only one, it's not making a proper contact, and it can actually, if I just show you here, hopefully you can pick it up, you can actually, if I just do extended there, you can probably pick that up, you can actually move that fuse away. I'll take a close-up I think. So there you go, you can see that fuse quite easily being moved. So it's not making a proper contact. So of course, once I kind of like took the fuse out, checked them both, they were both fine. None of them were open circuit, they're both working perfectly. It was just a matter of me taking, like I say, taking them out and just bending this one here over just a fraction more than what it was, putting the fuse back in on the channel that wasn't working. And of course, that mended it, it was all back up and running. So basically, me moving this amplifier about around the house, doing different things with it, I just loosened it up just enough for it to go open circuit during actually listening, during a listening test. So it must have been just about hanging on in there, and all of a sudden maybe a change in temperature or something like that. It's just made that fuse just go open, you know, just move across a little bit from the connector there, and go open circuit kind of thing to the speaker, so no sound was coming out. So the problem now is obviously I've got to get another one of these. So I looked on eBay and places like that, and they're about £20, something like that, if you want one of these. But then I thought to myself, well, this is old, you know what I mean? This is fairly old, this unit. So if they fell apart off of there, this metal may just be getting a little bit brittle. So rather than buying another second-hand one and maybe that problem arising maybe in a year's time or something like that, maybe I should try and mend the ones I've got in here, or find another way of actually doing it. So what I'm going to do today is actually try and mend the one that we've got in there. So you're going to see me go through that process and be trying to repair this dodgy fuse holder. Okay, so the unit's on the bench upside down because I need to take the bottom plate off. It could be that on your one or your receiver or something like that, if you've got something like this and you're going to do exactly the same as me, you may have to take the lid off. But on mine it's the bottom plate, so I'll take the bottom plate off. There you can see the fuse holder towards the bottom of the screen in the centre. And just above it there, slightly to the left hand side, is two black capacitors there. There they are. You may just want to put a resistor or something across these, or short them out with a screwdriver, just to make sure you don't accidentally touch them. Not that these have got a lethal voltage in this particular amplifier here, but in your particular amplifier they may do. I don't know, so it may be worth your while shorting them out with a screwdriver. Not the best method. A resistor across is the better method. But even though they're pretty close to my speaker terminals here, you can see towards the left hand side in the centre, I didn't manage to touch them at all. I pretty much stayed clear of them. So there's the speaker terminals with the wrapped round wire wrapped around them. So we're going to unwrap them wires. Before we do that, just want to make a note of which wire goes where. So we're just going to do a little diagram, very simple: purple, blue at the top, and green and yellow at the bottom. That's exactly where they go. So when we come to put them back, we know exactly where they are. So there you go. I'm taking the purple one off now, and with these, as they've been wrapped down there for ages, and you come to unwrap them, like I say, they can get a little bit brittle. And here you can see the purple one decided to fall apart. So what I'm going to do is when I come to resolder, I'm just going to bare that purple wire a little bit more so I can solder it back, give it a little wrap round one or two times, not as many as it is in this picture. So with that done, all them undone, we're just going to undo these two screws here, which will eventually remove that fuse holder from the back of the unit itself. And once we've undone that, we're going to put it on the bench and we're going to attempt to repair it. Okay, there it is on the bench now. This is where the wires I've just taken off were connected at the back here. These are where the fuses go. As you can see, I've only got one spade or one part of that holding it in there, where two at the top, two at the bottom here, and only one at the top there again. So the fuses are all wobbling about. So what am I going to do now? I mean, some people may be tempted to actually, let's get the fuse, is actually to put the fuse in there at the other end and just solder there, just do a little solder there to hold the fuse onto that particular joint there, which is like a little bit of a bodge job, I suppose, but it will work. I will do it. The only thing that may go wrong there is that, you know, if you put too much, it'll take too long with the soldering, too much heat, you may actually dislodge that wire, that very thin wire inside the fuse itself may actually come undone from the cap itself as well. So that's a possibility there, depending on how long you take to do that little solder. But that is a possibility. You could just leave it like that. I mean, you wouldn't have had to take it out of the unit at all. You could have actually done that while it was on the unit. Just dab a piece of solder there and that would have held the fuse in place. But not very good, especially if you're going to pass it on to someone else. To say, yeah, I know there's an amplifier here, it's all working fine, and they suddenly take the back off and find there's bits of solder rolled in bits and pieces in. So I'm going to do it slightly, I'm still going to use some solder, but I'm going to do it a little bit different to that. My plan is, whether it's going to work or not is a different story, is actually to get rid of all these. I haven't got a new one with the speaker connections here at the back or anything like that. I want to keep them if I can. I don't think I'm going to have much choice anyway, because these are kind of moulded into it anyway. But get rid of these here. I mean, this one's fairly strong, so this one, I don't think I need to remove that. I'm really pushing that with all my might, this one here. That seems okay, and so does this one here. This seems to be okay as well. So I'm going to replace the two dodgy ones, shall we say. And what I'm going to do with that is just literally do this. I'm just going to snap them off. So yeah, I'm just going to, yeah, so they are quite, them brittle ones must have been really brittle, because this is taking quite a bit of force backwards and forwards. I was hoping it's going to snap off a bit easier this. I don't want to break it too much. There you go. In fact, that's not quite gone according to plan. Well, no, it's not too bad. I didn't want to take off this little bit of metal goes all around the outside here, but that's all right. As long as it's holding in there and it's tight, that's fine. So I'll just try and do the other one a little bit better. So that one's come off. And I'm going to do the same with this. I was hoping they break off a bit easier than that. So they are, you know, a bit unlucky there, these two are broken off. And come to think of it now, you know, going by what I've got here with these other two and these being hard to pull off, maybe a replacement one wasn't a bad idea, a second-hand replacement. Maybe that would have been okay. There's no way of knowing really. But going by this is a little bit harder than I thought to break off. I thought these were going to be fairly brittle, to be honest with you. But I'm trying to hold that in place there when I do this. And you're watching me. There you go. No, I thought that was it then. It seemed to be it. And it seemed to... in fact, it's just... no, I don't want to take that off. Just want to take the end off. So a bit more backwards and forwards. This is stronger than I thought. So there you go. It's finally come off. Oh, in fact, it's left that bit there. So slightly different to that. Got a little bit of metal holding that in place. This one here, but as solid as you like. There's no problem there. That's not going to slip. So I've took this away. So now I'm left with one decent one at each end. Like I say, these feel really strong, and going by the two I've just taken off, probably going to be fine, no problem at all there. And what I bought is a little pack here of replacement fuse circuit board holders. These actually go on the circuit board. I'll show you a picture anyway of one of them. These kind of clip onto the circuit board normally. And my plan here is today is to solder these in position here. There's no other way of really holding them on there. So they've got two little pins here. I'm going to break them off, them two little pins, with a pair of cutters in a minute, and we're going to solder that directly onto the ball. So you know, see how that goes. So just bear with me. As you can see, a pair of cutters, in fact 2 pairs of cutters have arrived. So I'm just going to snip off these little, these would normally go through the circuit board and hold that in place on the circuit board, but it's no good for us here. So we're going to try and snip them off. They've come off nice and easy, and that's that one. So we're left with a flat bottom to this fuse holder. Now make sure we get this the right way round, because one end is kind of where the fuse ends. If you know what I mean, it just stops the fuse moving any further. So we're going to have to make sure we put this board down here like so, that end that stops actually goes something like that. Hopefully you can see that. So on this end, if I just do it on this end here, you can see there's a little end, a little piece of metal that stops. I'll take a picture of that. Done properly, but you'll see that's the way it's got to go. So now I'm going to attempt to solder these onto this board here. A few precautions here. We don't want to get this too hot. It's made out of plastic. Because as soon as we start getting this too hot, that mould there will probably start melting and it'll start wobbling about everywhere and getting loose. So we want to be in and out as fast as possible. So let's get on with that. Okay, first thing you're going to notice is I'm a bit cack-handed here because it's got camera positions and holding things, and I'm not set up here really yet. But you may have noticed I've already done one here. I just wanted to do a test one really, to be honest with you, to make sure that enough flux on this solder here is actually going to adhere to the connection here, or would it be better just to get a little bit of flux, which I have got, but where it is a different story. So as it happens, it's been right handy. It's going to be working without any flux, but if you get any trouble adhering the solder to the metal here, you may just want to put a little bit of flux in it or something like that. So let me just show you me doing this actual other part here. So let's just come in here with the iron, and the last one was okay, just a reasonable amount of solder on it. Like I say, I don't want to stay on here too long. It's longer than I wanted it to really, but it is getting there, I think. There you go. A little bit longer than I thought, a little bit longer than this side, that's for certain. That was pretty quick. And as you can see, if you leave it on there too long, the actual plastic there will start melting, so just be a bit careful. No problem at all here. This seemed to work nicely. Maybe my iron just needed a little bit. I should have cleaned that off, the tip of that iron really, before doing it on this side. So much so that it's actually got a little bit of the carpet there stuck to it, but that's off there now, and that's okay. Slight bit of damage there, as you can see. A very slight bit of damage there to the connection at the back, but that's nothing. It's in there solid. That's going nowhere like the other, so that's fine. So we've just got one more solder to do on that, so we're going to hope that holds out okay. So what I'm going to do now, as you can see, I'll just move that over there. We've got the little kind of clip here we want to put in its place, and we're pretty much going to do the same. Well, I'm going to do the same. I'm going to adhere some solder to it now. Like I say, I'm sorry about this. The iron lead shouldn't be like this. It's right close. And this iron should be a little bit cleaner than what it is, so let's just give that a clean. Should have done that before doing that joint there really. But let's go on this here, and hopefully it doesn't matter how long we're on this piece here at all. And we're going to give it all over just enough. There you go. So obviously don't touch that yet, just leave that aside. So I'm going to let that cool down a minute. Okay, that's cooled down now. It takes quite a while really. It's surprised now what that gets. Now what we want to do now, just move that out of the way. I'll explain what that's all about in a minute. We're going to attach this here, obviously the right way, like I say. It's got a little end cap kind of thing there, you'll see it. If I spin it around there, it's completely clear, hopefully you can see that. And the end bit's just got a little stopper there to stop the fuse. So if I just show you, if I put the fuse in there, it wasn't going any further there this way because it's actually being stopped by that stopper. If I went to put it in this way, I can't, because that actually stops it. But what we want to do now is solder this to this joint here, both together. Now you could have a pair of pliers, someone holding a pair of pliers to hold that in place for you, something like that. You could maybe get away with a screwdriver if the end is exactly the same size as this, and kind of put the screwdriver across like so. You'll see what I mean in a minute. Got an old fuse, or fuse I'm not using, which I've here. This is a fuse I'm not using. When I say old fuse, I mean a blown fuse. I'm not many people going to keep a blown fuse, but you may have one. The fuse the same size as the one, same in length as the one we're actually replacing, which is this one here. This is the one that come out of it. So that's the one that's, it's like a dummy really. What it's going to do is make sure the gap's exactly the same. And it's just going to hold that in position. Hopefully you can see that side on there. If I just move that about, I think you've got a drift. It's kind of like on this end of the bolt, it's nice and flush. On this end, obviously, we've got a bit of solder on the actual pin itself, and on this thing here, this little clip. We're going to push them together now with the soldering iron. So what I'm going to do is apply some heat at the top here, and hopefully that's going to transfer through and actually melt the solder and hold that in position. Bearing in mind, I don't want to leave them there too long because I don't want this pin getting too hot and this melting too much as well. But don't mind a little bit of melt as long as it holds it all in position. But obviously we can get away with it, all the better. So this is going to be a bit more cack-handed again. What I'm going to do is I'm going to clean my iron in here. I've got one of these kind of metal things, whatever they're called, sponges, and that should give your iron a nice clean tip. In fact, it makes my mine go blue. There you go. Hopefully you can see that. It's just the heat transfer and going back to blue there. But we're just going to push them there. So what I'm going to do, I'll do it from this angle here, but we're going to kind of put my soldering iron in there, and we're going to push down at the same time. So hopefully that heat's going to transfer through. I'm pushing down, and that's taking longer than I thought that heat. It's starting to transfer. Did it transfer through there? There you go. Take it away. It was hard for me to tell. I actually did transfer through a little bit earlier than that. It was sort of awkward for me actually to feel that, to see it and try and film it at the same time. But obviously, if you're doing it yourself, you have more of an idea. And that pin, as it happens, I'm touching that pin, it's not too bad at all. So there you go. Now, it looks like it's a little bit wonky. Like I say, we could actually break this one off and have it the same, because what's happened here, it's not like the solder's maybe raised it just a little bit, not a lot, but this fuse is actually, this fuse holder clip is actually higher than the one that's in there. So even if I put this one level, it would be, this one's slightly higher. So you can see it's a slight tint downwards there in one direction. If you wanted to break off all four of them, you could. Then obviously they'll all be, once you've soldered them all back in there, they'll all be nice and level. It's still got a bit of heat to it, so I'm going to leave that fuse in there just a little bit longer, just let it make sure it cools down. And yep, that's okay now. So I'm just going to take that fuse out. There you go. So that's that one connected there. I'm going to do exactly the same with this one, then I'll come back and we'll rewire it. Okay, so that's the other one soldered in as well, and that went in a little bit easier. It did help that I've actually put my glasses on this time, so I know exactly what was happening. So there you go. These are nice and solid. Like I say, I'm going to show you just a picture. There's a slight tilt from this new one to the bottom to this other one, slightwards, downwards tilt there. It's just where this is a little bit higher than this one. Like I say, you can, if you wanted, break these off and put 4 new ones on, but these seem really strong and fine. I think just a bit unlucky with them two breaking off. I don't know why. They must have just went brittle for some reason. But that's what happened, and that's what they did, which is a little bit of a shame. But Anyway, there you go. Like I say, you may want to actually maybe buy a second-hand one of these and do this, but this is a fairly cheap way of doing it. I mean, these are only about £1.50, I think, for about 10, something like that. They cost me about £1.80, something like that. I put them up on the screen now anyway, so you can have a look. And it's done the job. It's going to do the job. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put the fuses back in. These are not the original fuses. These are my like spare fuses. The original fuses are over here. These are the blue ones that are in there, but we're going to keep them aside. And what we're going to do, we're just going to put these in there when we put this back into the amplifier and solder this end here. It's just going to, because these were wire wrapped first of all. I'm going to try and wrap them around a little bit, but as you know, as you can see, they make the wire brittle doing that. Well, not particularly doing it in the first place, but when we come to undo it, it does make the wire brittle, pretty much like moving a bit of metal or something backwards and forwards. It kind of gives the fractures and finally snaps. So I'm going to try and wrap around a little bit as much as I can. Obviously a bit of that wire is now missing off the length of that wire, and we're going to solder these in position as well, I think, just to make sure there's a good solid contact as well on these fuses. So let's do that now. Okay, so that's it. I've done it. I've put the bottom back on. I've put the fuse holder case back on, as you can see, and it's all working fine as expected. Now that is a pretty rare fault. I would have said the fuse holder's going like that, going brittle, one of the sides falling off that holds the fuse in place. You may well have one on the circuit board, something like that, that has broken or you can't get to, or something's happened to it, and it's going to be very, very awkward to repair and replace. And maybe that's another way of just making sure there's still a little bit of metal or some kind of connection on the circuit board, that you could use one of these other little fuse holders that I bought, these circuit board mount ones, maybe snip the ends off like I did, or maybe just rearrange it a little bit, solder on that, on that particular connection, and solder on the connection on the board, and kind of fuse them together by holding the soldering iron on top of them. Obviously be careful, don't leave it on there too long, damage the board or any components nearby. Just be a bit careful with that, because it does take a little bit of persuasion, shall we say, a little bit of it to get it to bond together. But that unit's now working. I'll come back eventually with a review. I'm going to sit down one of these days. I did do it the other day, and obviously it conked out, but I've got quite a few other videos I want to do, so it'll find its way onto the channel pretty shortly. So I'll say thank you for watching. Until the next video, I'll see you all soon.